The psalmist says, "Seek ye the Lord while he may be found.
Yes.
Call ye upon him while he is near." Seek ye the Lord while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. We stand on the threshold of a brand new year, 2015. And usually when we get to this point in time, people look back over their lives and they try to maybe look forward a little bit. The strange thing about yesterday, though, we can't do anything about it, can we?
No.
And we can go forward in time, and we're always going forward in time in small increments, 24 hours a day, and 1 hour at a time, a minute at a time. So we're always going forward in time. But yet we don't know what the future holds. But we may know who holds the future. And I certainly do. The Lord God holds the future. It is in His hand. And I will not be afraid. I will be calm because I know God is in charge and He is on the throne and He rules and He reigns. But sometimes we look back at the yesteryears, the yesterdays, and we can't change those things that are back there in the past. And so what decisions we made then have the consequences and impact on our nows. But when is that time? The book of Isaiah said, "Seek ye the Lord while He may be found." And call upon His name while He is near. But when is that? How do I know when the time is right to call upon the Lord? I've had a lot of people assure me that when the time is right, and when they come to that point, they're going to accept Jesus. Well, I want to tell you something, how you can absolutely know when the time is right. 2 Corinthians, the 6th chapter, and verse 2 says this, "For He saith, I have heard thee in a time accepted, and in the days of salvation have I succored thee. Behold, now is the accepted time. Behold, now is the day of salvation."
Yes, it is.
Now is the day of salvation. Tomorrow may never come, as the old saying goes, and yesterday is like water under the bridge. In fact, in the book of Ezekiel said that yesterday is like a dream when we awake in the morning. You know how you'll have a dream at night, good or bad, but when you awake in the morning, it kind of just drifts away and slides away from you into forgetfulness. And sometimes we forget the commitments that we made yesterday. And sometimes, and it's a good thing, sometimes we forget the hurt and the pain of yesterday. But it kind of drifts away from us, and as if it is no more. But I want to say something to you about yesterday. Yesterday is not completely gone, because I know many people that are haunted by their yesterdays. And they can't get beyond those yesterdays. I used to work with a man. He was an elderly man, and maybe he had reached a point in his life where he felt that his best days were gone, and he had more yesterdays than he did tomorrows. And he used to enjoy telling me about how he used to work for the road department when they were cutting Highway 98 and getting ready to pave it. And he cut the grade for 98, and he used a shovel. He was out ahead of the work crews, and he was actually cutting the grade, and he was doing it with a shovel. And he would tell me about that fondly from there by where Schilder's Road is, all the way out through Wilmer and over to the Mississippi line. He told me about that many times, over and over and over again. And he loved to talk about it. But that was his yesterdays, his fondest memories. But all of our memories about yesterday are not fond. Some of them provoke regret and sorrow. I read about a man, his name was Tycho Brahe. He was a Danish astronomer. He accomplished many great things in the observation of the movement of the planets and so forth, and passed it on to history. And much of his experimentation and observations were helpful to astronomers in later years. But he had a problem. He was given to debauchery. He was given to drunkenness. He was given to riotousness. He wore a golden nose because his original nose was shot off in a duel. And he died from his drunken debauchery. And in the waning moments of his life, it is recorded he was contemporary, of course, with Johannes Kepler. Now, Johannes Kepler was a German born, and he was a Christian. He was a devout man, and the lifestyle of Brahe, he was repulsed by it. But he sat by Brahe's bedside in his waning and dying moments, and Brahe, in gentle delirium, would murmur, "Oh, that it may not seem that I have lived in vain. Oh, that it might not seem that I have lived in vain." And as he was dying, his regret was all of those wasted years. And how many of you know people that have wasted years and regrets? Of course, wasted opportunities. If I were to ask you this morning, if you could go back in time and change anything about your past, where would you go? What would you do? What would you do differently, knowing then what you know now? Would you change anything? And of course, almost everyone sitting here would say yes. And so there are wasted years. There was, some of you might even remember Dr. Robert G. Lee. He was a famous pastor of Bellevue Baptist Church in Nashville, Tennessee for many, many years. I mean, in Tennessee. And he was the former pastor of First Baptist Church of New Orleans, Louisiana. And he received a telephone call and was invited to come down to the prison. There was a man on death row down there, called himself the chief of the Kangaroo Court. And he was to be executed. And Dr. Lee went in to talk to him. And in the conversation, the man said, "Well, if I could go back and change just one day of my life, I would do it." But he said, "I can't do it, can I?" All the regret in his voice, because he couldn't go back. And Dr. Lee said that he told him, he said, "No, a river never returns and flows back to its source. And once it is broken, you can't put an egg back together again. Humpty Dumpty stood on the wall, and Humpty Dumpty had a great fall. But all the king's horses and all the king's men could not put Humpty Dumpty back together again. Oh, this is the price I pay just for one riotous day. Years of regret and grief and sorrow without relief. Suffer I will, my friend, suffer until the grave shall give me release. Small was the thing I bought, small was the thing at best, but oh God, the interest. This is the price I pay just for one riotous day. Years of regret and grief and sorrow without relief. Oh, yesterday, yesterday. But what are the consequences for the decisions? It may be past and we can't change it. But just as sure as you're listening to me, all those things of the past unrepented for will reoccur to you when we stand before the Lord to be judged. It will live again when we have to give an account for those things that we should have done and didn't do, and that we did that we shouldn't have done. And so, wasted years, or the regret, And so it is like a sleep once it is past. Well, what about today? What about today? And this is what he said. Now is all we have. Yesterday is gone. Tomorrow may never come. But now, today is the day of salvation. And now is the accepted time. Well, a doctor called his patient. And he said, "Come in, I need to talk to you." And the patient went in to see his doctor. He said, "I've got two lots of news for you. One of them is bad news, and the other news is worse." And the patient said, "Well, give me the bad news first." He said, "Well, you know that test we took yesterday? I got the results from that test yesterday." And he said, "What did it say?" Said, "You only have 24 hours to live." And he said, "Well, what could be worse than that?" He said, "I've been trying to call you and contact you for 24 hours. So, Brother Darrell, what could be worse? In other words, what I'm saying to you is, today is the day of salvation, because today is all you have.
Amen.
I'm serious. Today is the only thing that now is the only thing you can do anything with. You can't do anything with the past. And you can't do anything with the future either. You can make preparations, and you can prepare yourself, and that's good. That's all well and good. But right now is the only part of your life that you can really make a difference with. It's what you do now, in this very moment. And so it is the future, and the coming of the Lord is nearer than when we first believed. And so today is the day of salvation, and now is the accepted time, and once it is gone, it will never come back again. And so the decisions that we make now are the decisions that we might have to give consequence for. Well, what of tomorrow? I can always have hope for tomorrow. Yes, and of course that is exactly what faith is. It is hope for future good. And it is that hope that gives us our spirit a resiliency, and gives us strength, and gives us the courage to face a brand new day. For without hope, you wouldn't have the emotional energy to get out of bed in the morning. I believe that. Have you ever known anybody who really, truly has ever given up hope? I mean, it just come to the point in their life where they just didn't have any hope. I knew a man one time, my wife, not my wife, his wife. That's who it was. Thought I'd forgotten, didn't you? His wife called me and said, "Come over, I want you to pray for Gene." And I went over to her house, you know, and I said, "Well, where is he?" And she said, I was a brand new pastor at that church. They had just took me out and unwrapped me, you know, and wound me up. And I mean, I was brand new. I was a rookie preacher. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know anything. I didn't even suspect anything. And so I went into the house, and I said, "Well, where is your husband?" She said, "He's back there in the back room." And I said, "Well, I'll go back there." And she said, "No, there's no need." "What do you mean, there's no need?" And she said, "He won't respond to you at all. Because about 3 months ago, he hasn't been out of that room. All he does is just eat. He won't bathe. He won't shave. He won't change his clothes. He just lays there. He doesn't respond at all." He had come to a point in his life to where there was nothing to look forward to anymore.